Steve Grubbs and his wife Kelly are the founders of Victory Enterprises and Victory Store. They were founded in 1997 and 2000 respectively. Victory Enterprises is a technology development and public relations firm with offices in 5 states. VictoryStore.com is the parent company of 20 online retail stores, including Big Funny Cards, Pull Banners, and Campaign Pros. Together, the company employs 75 people. Steve, of course, is a graduate of the University of Iowa in finance and has his law degree from the University of Iowa. Has served in a fantastic way for the state of Iowa and representing our community. Well, that seems like a long time ago, Steve, now. Anyway, Steve is the chair of the International Internet and Technology Network for YPO and is passionate about entrepreneurship in our community. Please join me in welcoming Steve Grubbs.
It's nice I can have my notes on my iPad now, and if I say anything inappropriate, my wife can send me a quick message to apologize for anything I've said. So hopefully we won't have to do that. You know, strategy number 1 is to marry well, and I married well, and Kelly and I are celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary next week, so I have to tell her thanks for putting up with me, and hopefully, Lord willing, we'll have 25 more. So one of the things I'm passionate about is entrepreneurship, and especially here in Iowa. I'm chair of this Internet and Technology Network, and we have 1,400 companies around the world that are members of this, and some of the members include luminaries like the president of eBay and the founder of Intuit QuickBooks and the CEO of Rackspace and on and on. So these really giant companies, but there's a lot of middle-sized companies as well. And on one of my trips representing the network, I was in Silicon Valley in December. And I'm sitting around a table, after-work drinks with some of these CEOs of these tech companies. And you know, I'm sort of like a fly on the wall. I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the conversation. And if you know Silicon Valley, it's a different way of thinking about business. You know, one guy leans over and says, "Hey, congratulations on your exit." And he says, "Well, congratulations on your exit." And of course, they're talking about, well, they sold their companies. They owned them for 2 years and sold them for millions and on and on. And the next guy, you know, starts talking about, you know, he thinks his exit will be, you know, sometime next year and on. And then they turn to me and they said, "Now, Steve, tell us about your business." And I said, all right. Well, we started in our basement in 1997. And, you know, we've slowly built it over 13, 16 years now to where it is. And one of the guys looks at me and he says, "That's just, you know, that's so interesting to hear about a company that actually started, didn't gain any funding, and is still around after 16 years. And I thought, I thought the exact opposite, that it was interesting to listen to them talking about all these exits. And, you know, part of building a business, to me, is thinking big. You know, sometimes when you're in the Midwest, you think, you know, this market. But in this day and age, in the day of the internet and the day of telephones, there's no reason that somebody in Iowa, somebody in Illinois, can't build a business as large as businesses in Silicon Valley or anywhere else in the United States. And the bottom line is we have funding available now. There was a time when funding was somewhat limited, but anywhere you go in the United States now, you can find funding. I had the privilege a couple of years ago of sitting at a table in Seattle, and I sat next to a guy who had served on 3 corporate boards. He was one of the executives in 3 corporations: Oracle, Apple, and Amazon. And because I was in Seattle, he was currently working for Amazon. And he had worked directly with Larry Ellison of Oracle, Steve Jobs at Apple, and Jeff Bezos at Amazon. And so, you know, I thought, wow, what a great moment to maybe learn something. And so I looked at him and I said, "If you could tell me the difference between those 3 leaders, I think that would be very interesting." And he said, "You know, all 3 had very different leadership styles. Larry Ellison was all about beating the competition. And if you know anything, if you read the stories about Larry Ellison at Oracle, he's very competitive. And he was all about, every time they had a meeting, he wanted to identify the competitors and focus on beating the competition. He said Steve Jobs was nothing like that. Steve Jobs was really oblivious to the competition. He was all about and fanatical about getting the product right. He believed that if you got the product right, that your company would succeed. He said, now Jeff Bezos, he really can't control the quality of the product because he's not producing it. Jeff Bezos, from day one, has been all about getting the customer experience right. And so, lesson number one that I've learned along the way is that succeeding, building a great business or a great nonprofit or whatever your goal is, there's not necessarily one way to do it. And there's not necessarily one type of leader. But you do have to be committed to making it happen. Lesson number two, and this one always will surprise people. Lesson number two is fail fast. Fail fast. So the reality is, chances are if you're starting a business, the odds are you're not going to make it. And maybe that's not very motivational. But the reality is most businesses fail, right? Nobody has that perfect crystal ball to figure out what concept will succeed, what concept will fail. So the bottom line is, maybe you've started a company and it's just not going to make it. If it's not going to make it, it doesn't mean that you're not going to make it. It doesn't mean that you can't still build another great company, right? What it does mean is get out of this one, cut your losses, and move on to something else that works. Kelly and I have started more than just two companies. We started one early on that failed. It was called Victory Radio. It was an internet radio station. We put a lot of effort into it. But at some point, we launched it the day of the big internet bubble burst back in March 2001, so that probably wasn't the best timing. But after about a year, we figured out this is not going to go. Cut our losses, and in the meantime, we had started VictoryStore.com that went on to become a significant company. So don't be afraid to fail fast, because failure in business doesn't mean you're a failure, especially in the United States. And that's the blessing of living here. There's a lot of places in the world, and like this network I have, 1,400, there's people from all over the world, over, I think, 50 countries that are represented. There's a lot of countries that if your business fails, you don't get a second shot. In the United States, we get second acts, we get third acts, we get fourth acts, because this is a nation where you can fail and people recognize you'll still succeed. Lesson number three, be ready to pivot. So you've probably all rented from Blockbuster, and probably most of you have rented from Netflix. Back in the late 90s, the CEO of Netflix had this idea that maybe people were tired of late fees, and that because of this new thing called the internet, he could set up a way for people to order DVDs through the mail. We all know the story. So he went to Blockbuster and said, I've started this company, do you want to buy it? And Blockbuster said, that's never going to work. And so Netflix launched their model, and it worked, right? And Blockbuster now, after being just a huge company, is starting to fail. So what was their answer? They hired the CEO of 7-Eleven and decided to build more box stores. And it was an utter failure, and we all know that Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy a couple years ago. Meanwhile, Netflix, right? DVDs through the mail, but that model started to run its course. And so what did they do? They pivoted. Smart enough to pivot and transitioned, even though it was a rocky transition, to a movie download. And now they're struggling to get content, so they pivoted again and created their own production company to create their own original series. And so far, it's been very successful. So be ready to pivot. The world of business is changing so fast these days, even in our company. A lot of times people look at us and say, oh, you're successful. And I think to myself, boy, I don't feel successful. Every day, it's hard. This has been a very challenging year for us, and so we're working hard to shift our business model. And we have to constantly do that because the market changes so quickly. So lesson number three, pivot. Lesson number four, Successful business leaders know how to efficiently convert their downtime to productive time. This, to me, is one of the most important lessons you can learn. We all have that time where we're at the office or that we're working, right? And then we all have that time that we're with our family. We have our time when we're sleeping. But throughout every day, you have small increments of time, 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, maybe you're waiting to pick somebody up, and you just sit there. What if you took all of those small increments of time every week that would otherwise be wasted, not time you'd spend with your family, not time you'd be at work, but take those small increments of time and use them to do something permanently productive? That all adds up after a while. And doing that, you can capture an entire day, an extra day of work, not by making your family sacrifice or anything like that, but simply by capturing your downtime. Lesson number 5. I believe that one of the reasons that small businesses don't grow is because the founder, the owner, the president, whoever the primary driving force is of the company, they are so swamped by all they have to do just to keep today's tasks under control that they have very little time to productively grow their company. If you want to grow a company or a nonprofit or whatever it is that you're involved in, even if it's a little league, you have to spend some of your time every day on growth. And so I have what we call the 70-30 rule. Our executives spend 30% of their time growing the company and 70% of their time on day-to-day tasks. And growing might be new marketing plans, might be new product development, might be new sales initiatives. Whatever it is, you must spend 30% of your time on the future, because if all you do is spend your time on the day-to-day tasks, it's not going to last. Lesson 6, see the future. Now, that's maybe the most challenging part. But here's the bottom line, especially for our community. There is a whole machine in the San Francisco area where people sit around every day. They have coffee, they have lunch, they go have cocktails together at night, and they are dreaming of ways to own the future. Unless we in the Midwest think in that same way, and I know the Chamber's showing a lot of leadership in this area, and I'm so thankful for that, we will never see the type of job growth and business growth and wealth growth that they see in other parts of the country. And so, to me, the future is pretty apparent if you are a reader and you read magazines and periodicals. Just if you stop and think, 3D printing is going to be huge. Moving to the cloud, these have already begun, but they're still mostly have not been adopted in most places. Servers in your businesses will be gone in 5 years. Buying software by the box will be gone. Moving to the cloud, moving your things you currently have on in-house servers to the cloud, moving your software to SaaS or software as a service, anything related to mobile. That's where the world is going. And consider how your business can grab onto those things and find growth opportunities through them. If you're an electrician, I just put a Nest thermostat in my house. So my poor wife doesn't have to hop out of bed to manage the thermostat. She can just now pull up her iPhone, pull up her Nest app, and she can change the temperature in our house. I did that for her. Yes, I did. 25 years, that's what she gets. Happy anniversary. I'll conclude by saying this. We're active in our community, and we donate like most of you do. But I don't see that as the primary social good of what we do. Sometimes there are those who like to cast business in a negative light. But I'll tell you this, every day that you get up and that you go to work and create jobs and create wealth What you are doing is funding all the programs in the government. You are providing millions of dollars of income to local families. You are providing health insurance to thousands and thousands of people across this community just by getting up and going to your business and doing what you do. You are creating a social good. And to me, that's worth celebrating. And so to all of you, the award winners today, and to everybody else in the room who makes the engine of this nation turn, I tip my hat to you and say thank you for what you do, and let's make it happen for the Quad Cities. Thank you.